I'm having one of those weeks when you get out of bed, you're ready to rock and roll, your engines are running, you get outside, and this is the vehicle that you're left with. You can't go anywhere, maybe up and down the sidewalk in front of your home, but that's about as far as you can get. That's what's happening. I had a major IP breakdown, meltdown of my computer system. So I'm actually working from another computer system. Hopefully, you guys don't know the difference. Hopefully, it doesn't come through here. So we'll see though. But that's why I'm going to keep today a little bit short, simply because I got to get my other computer systems and network up and running so I can get racing next week. So let's get to it. This is the S&P 500 on a 20-year monthly chart. The close on Friday, 283.60. And as you can see here in the far upper right, we are reaching toward that previous high we hit earlier this year, or late 2017. We're almost there. Once we get to the daily chart, we'll see if we can hit this record next week. Into the MACD, definitely fast line is reflecting off the slow line and just barely picking up some acceleration. I want to see that acceleration continue. The same thing for here in the histogram. I want to see that continuation. Relative strength. I want to see this bounce, head on up into the 80 line, into the oversold territory, but I want it up and I want it to stay there for a while. The stochastics, somewhat the same. The fast line has moved into oversold territory, but I want to see the slow line move on up too. Into the volume, volume has had a drop off. I don't like to see that drop off. Fairly steep here in the last few weeks or so. Perhaps even the past few months. Williams is heading on up, doing just what I want to see. Back on up here to the price chart. And as I've told you before, once we get to this level here, that's what is going to have or be the maximum amount of risk for us until we can break through that level or not. We shall see. So now let's go to the weekly chart. This is the 2-year weekly chart on the spiders. And as you can see here, we hit a previous high last week that was just a bit higher, at least by the weekly, than it was the close of this week. We'll take a closer look at that on the daily. But for right now, it's kind of interesting to see that here. We've got some mixed indications from these oscillators. First of all, we've got the MACD. It looks like it has very healthy acceleration on up. And then you can also see the slow line is continuing to head on up. That's real good. The histogram shows much the same. Nice looking there. Now, price rate of change. We hit this peak here, right, at that 20 level, and we bounced off that. We're not as high right now on the close of Friday, so I want to see what happens into next week. We need to continue on up into that oversold territory as we did in this area here, or perhaps even back there. We need to get up there and not stall out. So this signal here, we want to watch, want to pay attention to that. Relative strength looks like it's doing just fine, heading on up. The stochastics as well, continuing on up into the oversold territory above the 80 line there. And volume looks to be okay. Nothing to shout about, but doesn't look too bad either. And then, of course, the Williams has been performing quite well. Looks like it's heading on up, and it looks like it's going to stay there for a while, so that's good too. Back here to the price chart, we need to inch a little bit higher. I think the previous level is right there. And so now let's go to the daily chart to see if we're going to reach that. Taking a look at the 1-year daily chart so that we can go all the way back here and see the previous high at that peak point there. Not sure exactly what it is, not going to look it up, don't really care, but it's right about here. So It's close enough that we might be able to strike it into next week. I'm not so sure about that. What's going to happen is I think we're going to reach that level and then we'll probably hesitate. I simply say that because everybody and their brother is going to be looking at that level, and the typical or traditional chartists are going to see that as a resistance level, and that's exactly what it is. So we may head up there and hesitate. It would be very interesting if we could bust right through that and continue on up. That would be very strong. And we do actually appear to be fairly strong. Looking here at the MACD, we came under, the fast line came under the slow line, but we're going to loop on up. It looks like very similar to this here, to this here, and then perhaps even to this to some degree. And you can even go back and see some other examples where that has happened, particularly here as well too. So just a little dip under that slow line and then kind of a slingshot up. So this continued on for about a week to 2 weeks or so, same as this. This did too. So we may have a good chance of hitting that peak and then breaking through. So very interesting next week. Into the histogram, it sees or shows exactly what we're talking about in the other chart. And this oscillator here, the price rate of change, it's hitting a bottom here and then wants to, fast line wants to head up through there into next week, and that would be another good sign of some pretty good strength. The RSI bounced off of that bottom, or at least the midline here, and very healthy increase. Moving here into the stochastics, we have a reflection at this point. Fast line moving on up, looks good. This level here was not as far down as this, but not as high as this. So in between these two. So I think we're probably going to get another continuation of this for perhaps a week and into the following week. The volume looks fine, and then the Williams, of course, has been performing at every time frame we've looked at. So heading on up, back up to this price chart here. Looks like could be fun into next week. See if we can break that old high. And that would be in the face of some pretty bad news that we had, such as from Netflix, Twitter, and Facebook. So that would indicate to you a very strong market. But again, once we reach this previous high, that's going to be the point of maximum risk, at least in my own opinion, by my own judgment. So do we hesitate there or do we continue on through? In my opinion, given the strength that I see right now, my opinion is that the greater probability is that we head through that. Maybe just a short hesitation, but we head on through, not necessarily very strong, but I think we're going to break through that, and it might be as soon as toward the end of next week. So we will see, and I will be there no matter what happens to my computer systems. I may miss a video someday or another, but know that I will be back. So for today, that's Chew Dog Charts. Thank you.